Attorney Monica Lindstrom is with us this morning with more perspective on some of the legal ramifications. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
We know a jury has been set here, and there's been a lot of question about whether or not Ray can get a fair trial.
Well, whether he can or not isn't really an issue anymore because the judge has decided that he can. Once they pick the jury and impanel them, the decision has been made that he will receive a fair trial because there was a motion to move the trial from up north down here to Maricopa County if they couldn't find a jury that could be unbiased.
And what the courts decided to do was give them surveys to find out exactly how much they knew about this case.
Yep, there were juror questionnaires, and then they were questioned in court by counsel and the judge, and it was determined that this jury could listen and be fair.
What I found was really interesting with all that questioning was about what 65% of the people didn't know anything about the case.
Which is very surprising with the media attention this got almost a year and a half ago.
Sure.
But not everybody watches TV, I guess.
Well, there you go. And there are a lot of witnesses set to take the stand in this.
Yes.
And some very interesting witnesses, including some of the folks who were inside that sweat lodge ceremony.
Absolutely. Besides the typical investigators and police officers and doctors, there's going to be actual people that were participants testifying on both sides of the prosecution and the defense. There's going to be witnesses that helped build the sweat lodge, that were right outside the sweat lodge, that heard everything that was going on, that pulled bodies out of the sweat lodge. So unfortunately, it's going to be very interesting.
Well, part of it being interesting is we know that he's facing 3 counts of manslaughter, faces up to, what, almost 38 years in prison if he's convicted on all 3 counts.
That's right.
But what I'm curious about is what the prosecution has to prove in this case.
Well, they have a very tough battle because they have to prove that James Ray recklessly caused the death of these 3 people, which means he knew that there was a substantial risk of death and he just completely ignored it or disregarded that risk. So they have to prove he knew that this could happen and he basically didn't care or didn't do anything to really prevent it. That's the best way I can explain it without using a lot of legalese. And that's difficult because how can you really prove that? You can really only prove that by his actions or whether he did or didn't do something. But remember, these were people that paid over $9,000 to be there. Business people, free thinkers, they've been part of his program before. Not all of them, but some of them. And he even has a witness that's going to testify that she did this and she was smart enough, or she knew when her body was telling her to get out.
Real, and she did, because many of them did leave when they saw people dropping to the floor.
That's right, and so that witness is really going to help him, and that's a strong point in the defense case, is that these people weren't chained up. They weren't roped up. They could leave anytime that they wanted.
And they also signed consent forms. That could work for and against him as well.
Exactly. There were waivers. The waiver could show that James Ray and his team knew that there was a possibility of harm, but it also shows that the people signed it, that they were aware that there was a possibility of harm, and they assumed that risk.
Well, Monica Lindstrom, thank you very much. I know we've got a lot of international news agencies here in the state of Arizona, that trial happening in Camp Verde.
Yes.
Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.